I'm David Gadarian, and welcome to The Flip Story. Today, we're exploring structures you build to protect yourself, and then how sometimes you can go back and rebuild those very same structures in new ways. Our guest, Alan Lazaros, was the architect of a life that looked full of promise from the outside. He had the engineering precision, the MBA, the correct trajectory. He was building on a foundation of old blueprints, perhaps outrunning a family legacy, a family tragedy from his childhood. And then tragedy nearly struck again with a near fatal car accident that forced him to stop running and start living. Alan didn't just survive the crash, he used it as a catalyst to re engineer his entire existence, eventually reaching a global audience and helping thousands of others find their own internal velocity. Alan, welcome to the show.
David, thank you for having me. I already mentioned starting with gratitude in the pre-chat we did, but I don't take it lightly. The 21st century is very noisy, and 11 years ago, when I got in that car accident, I wanted to bring personal development, self-improvement, and personal growth to the masses. I have since realized that that is a hefty goal. So it's a noisy 21st century. If anyone is out there watching or listening to us, I don't take that lightly. I won't waste a second of anyone's time. So thank you first and foremost for having me.
Oh man, absolute pleasure. So we'll get into the some of these things because I think you have an interesting on-ramp into kind of the previous to the car crash and afterwards. But just to kind of level set for the audience, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now?
What I'm up to right now. So I think as you get older in life, you kind of find your one thing. I've started joking, my business partner, Kevin, and I, he's a podcaster who tolerates coaching. I'm a coach who tolerates podcasting. Nice.
I love it.
Nice. And the reason why is because both are meaningful work, but I like one-to-one better than one-to-scale. He likes one-to-scale. He likes to cast a wide net. I've realized I'm an engineer, and it's harder for me to sort of talk to a wider audience. I've realized that over the years. So what am I working on right now? Coaching. I coach 30 business owners. I am coaching every single day now, 6 days a week, not every day. 6 days a week. Sunday is my no front-facing day, but it's been tremendous. Industries all over the world. It's been really cool.
Yeah. What kind of clients are you coaching?
Everything from a photographer in Miami trying to grow her business from 50 grand a year to 75, all the way to someone in HVAC doing 9 million last year. It's all over the world, all different countries, all different backgrounds, someone in the Bahamas. It's business coaching is the type.
Yep.
And the people come to you because they want to grow their company, but what they end up needing is personal growth, self-improvement, and personal development and leadership. So it's business coaching, but really what it is we track metrics and habits and priorities and skills, and we do it all in Google Sheets, and it's all numbers based. We reverse engineer finish lines. So it's goal achievement coaching in a nutshell, but I call it business coaching because that's kind of what people think they need. And then they get that's what they think they want. And then they get what they really need.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to come back to this in a half a beat here, but I do want to kind of, when your team had initially reached out, it kind of shared some of your origin story. So I want to start there because I think a lot of folks face similar, not a lot, some folks face some similar types of adversities. Others are near facing those. But for you, you lost your father at a very early age. Mm-hmm. So how old were you when you lost your dad?
So I was almost 3. I was born in 1988 and he died in 1991.
Okay. And do you remember that, or were you too young?
I have very small memories of my dad. I'm not even sure if they're real necessarily. He used to put me on a pillow and kind of throw me up and down. That's kind of the only memory that I have.
Yeah.
I do think it's real.
Yeah.
Playfully, nothing crazy. But unfortunately, I never really got to know my dad.
Right. That's tough. That's sorry that was part of your experience. And so that's part of your origin story. And I want to fast forward a little bit to the world of engineering. Mm-hmm. So you grew up in New England. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Born and raised in Massachusetts, like you. Yeah. I don't know if you're born and raised, but I know you're still in Massachusetts.
I was born in Providence. I was
nice. Okay.
I moved to Massachusetts when I was like 3.5. So
very nice. Yeah. So you and I are from the same neck of the woods. I always joke. I say I've never left Massachusetts and not regretted it. It's a joke, but I do love it. I love New England. I didn't realize how much I did until I got older.
Right. I actually did leave for a while. I went about 15 years out west, and but I do live in the same town I grew up in. So
Do you? Good for you. Good for you. I lived in LA for a time and
yeah.
not a fan. Not a fan.
Oh, I lived in
Yeah.
LA. Yeah, 15
Did you?
years. I loved it.
Nice. Okay, nice.
Absolutely
Yeah.
love the city. It's a weird place though. There's no question.
Yeah.
It's a great way to both discover a lot about yourself and to get totally lost in who you are. It's a
You know it.
funny place.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't realize that. I missed it. I want to come back to LA in a minute.
Yeah.
So you go to, if I have it right, you go to WPI for
Correct.
engineering?
Yep.
Why? That's a heavy program. So what got you? Was that anything related to? Well, go ahead. You tell me.
Yeah. So WPI, for those of you who are not in the area, is kind of like a mini MIT.
Yep.
And my mother's father, my grandfather, went to night school there. My uncle Merle was the track and field coach there for 25 years. They actually still call it Norcross Field.
Huh.
So Merle Norcross was my uncle on my mom's side. And so it was just a thing in my family. And my mom always said, aim high and you'll have choices. To this day, best lesson she's ever given me. Well, her and I have talked about how much I disagree with some of my childhood. That one I agree with wholeheartedly. She taught me education, aim high and you'll have choices. And I've never not aimed high. She said, you can be a CEO or you can be a farmer. I'm going to love you either way.
Right.
But if you decide to go for CEO and then you wake up one day and want to be a farmer, you can make that decision, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way around. And
Fair.
honestly, I think aiming high long term is absolutely critical, because if you don't have big goals and dreams, you don't have the necessity to learn what you need to learn. If you don't have financial goals, you probably don't know finance. If you don't have fitness goals, you probably don't know fitness. So I'm big on that. And so WPI was aiming high from a very young age. That was sort of passed down in my family.
Right.
And I never used to share this, but I need to be courageous here. So when I was younger, I had a bunch of goals and dreams, but the two real main career paths, and I was very existential from a very young age. It was going to be lawyer, politician, president, or it was going to be engineer, MBA, CEO, like my hero at the time, Steve Jobs. I used to argue who's smarter, Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, Apple versus Microsoft, PC Gamer Magazine, built my first computer at 12, one of those nerds. Okay. And I had a law class that made me not go into law. So I decided to be engineer, MBA, CEO, and then I quit corporate, which we can talk about later on. But I was on that trajectory.
Right. So it was either engineering or law school, huh? And that
pretty much.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just trying to tie those two together.
I made that decision sophomore in high school.
Okay.
Yep.
And this idea of aim high and really embracing that, did you just, based on your early childhood, did you feel pressure to aim high, or was that just kind of normal? That's part of your DNA, or was that part of your kind of origin story of needing to kind of deliver for yourself or feeling like you needed to?
I think so. I'm 37 now. I've rewatched the movie of my life over and over and over again.
Right.
Like constantly, actually. As a podcaster, you got to understand your story and you got to be able to tell it.
Yep.
And I've also had a therapist named Carol for several years, probably 5 years now. And we analyze my past a lot. And what I've come to now is apparently I had really high self-efficacy, what's known as self-belief in layman's terms. But self-efficacy is your subconscious and unconscious belief in your own ability to create external outcomes.
Yep.
And so I had that very, very high. I still do. The majority of people actually don't. That's why only 4% of people have clear written goals. I've had clear written goals since I was a little kid. So I now realize that I'm like a super weirdo, and I didn't understand that at the time.
Right.
Because I was so focused on fitting in, and that's a whole story about abandonment and my family and my stepdad and all that kind of stuff, which we can get into if you want to. But what I will say in hindsight is very clear, to answer your original question, is yes, aiming high was totally in my DNA.
Right.
And it was nature and nurture. And I have no freaking clue what it's like to live a life without clear, specific goals. And that has become very evident as I coach people.
I like that. Okay. So here you are. You have this moment. I do want to come back to Steve Jobs too, by the way. Um,
Sounds good.
Walter Isaacson, you read the book?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
What'd you think?
Yeah. I mean, it was an excellent book. He's no longer my hero, but all my heroes have fallen from the pedestal ultimately.
Yeah.
I think on one hand, he's absolutely brilliant and a visionary and accomplished things that only he could.
Right.
And on the other hand, I think he was not well-rounded at all. And I am, again, my truth is, didn't take care of his health, didn't take care of his family. And while I do think he's a great role model in some ways,
right,
a terrible role model in others. And so for me, I don't like it when someone's work is better than them, but I also know that that's unfortunately the majority of the case. So
neat way to say that. My takeaway on the book was I kind of always kind of question the Apple fandom. They just, the whole idolizing anybody. I struggle with that, just full stop. But I walked out of that book thinking a little more of him, to be honest. I
really
get
good.
that he was totally flawed. I mean, I kind of knew that coming in, but I was pretty, I don't know, I was pretty impressed with the level of dedication and some of the things that, they were able to achieve as a company. He was able to achieve as an individual.
Yep.
But I don't know. Anyway, interesting.
Well, if you go into it thinking not a lot of him, you probably come out thinking more of him. If you go into it thinking a lot of him, you go out of it. I think
that's fair.
That's what maturity is.
And I
right?
think that
maturity is reassessing things from an accurate perspective. And I was a naive kid who looked up to him. I have a quote right here. Steve Jobs.
Huh.
The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And I love that quote because I think that's true. However, I mean, come on. No one is fully virtuous and no one is fully terrible. But I will say, at some point in my life, I decided, you know what? I have to be my own hero. And as a man who grew up without a father, I looked up to men. I tried to find role models, right? So Captain America, and I just wanted heroes. I wanted to look up, and I wanted to admire and be inspired and motivated, and Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, all this kind of stuff. And when you get older, I'm 37 now. I realize that there's a lot that I learned from these people. Like now, I admire certain aspects. So Kobe Bryant's work ethic for sure. Steve Jobs' visionary, creative mind for sure.
Right.
But there's an underbelly to everything, and I think that maturity is finding the duality between the two. I think some people only look at the bad and some people only look at the good, and I think it takes a wise individual to look at both simultaneously.
All right, I want to come back to this concept of be my own hero. I think it's super interesting. But let's stay with the narrative for a little bit longer if we could. So you finished WPI, you got this engineering degree. You get your MBA. Do I have that right?
Correct.
And now you get a job. If I recall, you're even like some of the places you're working at, I know just through my own work pretty well.
Yep.
And they're like instrumentation. They're places that are pretty specific, that are pretty rigorous, pretty defined. That's kind of the essence of what they are. And being an engineer and an MBA in that space, your world feels. I'm looking at it from 10 years ago as an outsider, but it feels like it's pretty neatly cut up at this point. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I didn't know this at the time, but conscientiousness is prudence, diligence, work ethic, and organization. And have you ever taken a personality test called Hexaco?
I have not, but yeah. Okay.
Hexaco, it tests you on 26 facets of your personality, and conscientiousness is the most correlated with external economic success. And I now, in hindsight, realize I was very high in conscientiousness. And so, yeah, every decision I've ever made was reverse engineered. So
Right.
the iRobots, Sensata Technologies, Oz Development, all those, you looked at my LinkedIn, obviously.
Yep.
I can tell by what you're saying. Yes, every move I made in my career was 100% reverse engineered to eventually become CEO of a Fortune 50 company like Steve Jobs.
Right.
And then I stopped that at 26, which I know we're going to get into. But it's nice to be with someone somewhat local because you kind of know WPI and you know a lot of those companies like iRobot in Bedford, Mass. And
Right.
it's weird because I have a global podcast now and I coach people all over the world. This is very weird for me for people to know like intimately these companies because Cognex is in Natick.
Yep.
And you know of Cognex, no one else does, right? Unless you're in the industry. So
Right.
it's just interesting Cognex was really legit. It was really, really legit. And I didn't like everything about it, but it was, I used to say this, I was playing in minor leagues. Now I'm in the major leagues. I used to say that at Cognex. Cognex was legit.
Yeah.
Still probably is. I don't know how they're doing now. I think they're doing a little worse, but Cognex was very legit. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole space of measurement's a neat space. So it's only going to get sharper and it's only going to continue to.
Are you an engineer as well?
I am not. I work, I'm not going to say the name of the company, but I work at a pretty major engineering software company. So I kind of know this universe pretty well and
love it. I can tell.
Certainly. I think
I
it's
didn't
interesting.
realize how weird my way of thinking is in the world. Like, because at Cognex, they're all sales engineers and they're all degreed engineers, not all of them, but all the people I worked with. So my buddy, Kevin, my business partner, he's like, dude, I don't even know if I've met another engineer other than you. And I'm thinking,
right.
What? All of my friends from college are engineers, right? But I went to an engineering school. So I was mining for Bitcoin in my dorm room in 2007. Like it's a different world when you, and everyone's like, oh my God, self-driving cars. It's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Like this is not new. None of this is new. And the AI thing, it's just been weird for me because if anything, it's taken way too long. I was at iRobot 12 years ago or something like that, or 10 years ago. And
right. They were
so
IoT
none
early,
of this robotic stuff is surprising at all to me. But again, it's engineers think very differently, and that's why people don't like us. And that's okay. So anyways, side tangent.
Yeah, I don't know that people don't like engineers. I think engineers have a unique culture, though, certainly. And a lot of those companies you mentioned, the path tends to be very engineering heavy.
Yeah.
And that you got to speak the language, you got to sell the language, you got to be an engineer in order to kind of go through that. And so some of those roles, they tend to struggle a little when they get outside of the exact engineering domain. But, I got a lot of respect for engineers. I can say that.
Thank you. I see that. And when I say people don't like engineers, what I mean is you learn very quickly that when a girl asks you, do I look fat in this? And you say yes at level 6 out of 10, that doesn't fly very well. So my point is in the social world, I think there's two worlds. There's the social world and there's the real world. Engineers live in the real world. The numbers and metrics, and other people are like, oh, I have a lot of money. It's like compared to what? Or I don't have enough money compared to what? Right? You don't know 195 countries on planet Earth, 8.3 billion people. The GDP of the U.S. is 33 trillion this year, 8.3 billion people on the planet, 6 billion on the internet now. Numbers for engineers help us see reality. Whereas a lot of people live in a subjective world, engineers live in an objective world. And so when you ask an engineer if you look fat, that's a dangerous question because we're going to say yes if you actually do. And then you're going to get offended. And so at the end of the day, the social world doesn't like engineers. And that I'm sticking by because engineers are very to the point and very exact and very measurement oriented, right?
Yeah, physics.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been really hard for me to navigate that, honestly, over the years. But yet engineers build the world. This camera, Riverside, my TV behind me, this iPhone, like engineers build the world around us. And unfortunately, we are typically ostracized from a lot of groups because we're too direct or too truthful or too accurate or too whatever. And we don't really deal with the social niceties as much as other people typically. So,
I see
because
it a little differently.
yeah, it's hard for me. You ever seen the movie Liar Liar?
Yeah, been a while. Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Yeah.
That movie is funny because he's so honest.
Right.
That's what an engineer actually thinks. But what they're allowed to say is very different. Right. And so I'm overriding a lot of things in this interview, to be honest, because it's very hard. What people think of you and what they say to you are very, very different typically.
I'm going to shock you a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. You ready?
Of course.
So I worked in the entertainment industry for about 15 years.
That's why you were in LA. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I've observed about the underlying product of entertainment is so similar to engineering, you'd be shocked. The people are the same. They have the same kind of personalities. Different people do different things. They kind of so it's the I happen to think engineers, you're right. All of these things you just described, iPhone, Riverside, TV behind you, those are all extensions of insane creativity. That's at least how I see it. So I see engineers kind of have a similar role to, say, entertainers.
However, the entertainers are putting on a performance.
Yeah, well, so your
and
product's
the performance
putting on a
is very
performance.
different than how they are behind the scenes. Have you noticed
Fair.
that?
That's fair. That's fair.
So that's what I'm talking about is everyone has a social version,
Right.
persona. That's what it's called, a persona, versus the real version of who they are.
Fair.
And the engineers tend to not realize that.
Less filter.
Yeah, less filter, exactly. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Fair. So this is definitely part of your origin. So you're coming out of WPI, this idea you're feeling this natively probably coming through of I'm an odd duck of some sort. I see the world a little differently. Fair?
Yeah.
You're running this
I don't think
plan
I
reverse.
accepted that until later.
That's
But
fair.
yeah, I think I'm starting to notice, yes.
Yeah. And so, okay.
But I'm hiding from it, definitely. I was hiding from realizing how different I was, for sure.
Okay.
Because I was trying to fit in the social world instead of sort of own all of who I am, which is why I felt inauthentic at 26.
Yeah, that's kind of normal. And that's, some people find that at 50 and 60, others at 10. I mean, it's kind of amazing. But yeah.
It's to the extent that you are rare statistically, though. So, like, there are some people in the center of the bell curve that don't actually have to change to fit in.
Right.
Right. So if you are a statistical anomaly, you end up either it's belonging theory is what this is called, and you try to manufacture belonging where it doesn't belong. And that was a phase that I went through where I, instead of leaning into my uniqueness, I would try to manufacture belonging out of fear of being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to override that on this interview several times already.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. You're good.
You think that's a confidence thing of just life maturity, or is that just a state of being that you kind of, as you continue to grow, you just evolve? Or
well, I think it depends. So people who are on the center of the bell curve, what we call ordinary or average or mediocre, they are usually afraid of not being great. The people at the top or the bottom of bell curves, particularly the top, they're actually afraid of their own greatness. Because of belonging theory and the tribal nature of evolution, we want to fit in.
Right.
And so the more statistically high your IQ is and EQ and how different you are, that gets larger over time, not bigger. And it creates this gap. And you either find your tribe, like WPI was a tribe for me. For sure. Because I went from super nerd to like, everyone's a fucking nerd. Great. Pardon my French if I'm not supposed to swear. Bleep that out if you have to.
I won't.
And so
you
but
tell
then,
me to.
but if you are average, you actually have no problem fitting it in, and most likely you struggle to stand out. If you are extremely unique and at the top of any bell curve, you stand out naturally and you have trouble fitting in, typically. And then there's subsets like, Kobe Bryant in basketball or Michael Phelps in swimming, but they're like average in other things, right? So it all depends on your own neurodivergence and your own IQ and all this different stuff. But if you're at the top of a bell curve, you're definitely more fearful of not belonging than someone who's average.
That makes sense because you can see more.
Yep.
Not to.
Have you ever read Flowers for Algernon?
Oh, geez, years ago, high school.
Oh, that book. Because he goes from the bottom IQ all the way to the top and then back again.
Down. Yeah, right.
That book messed me up in the best way. It was like, oh my goodness, it isn't. Okay, that makes perfect sense because, yeah, you just, people would rather, they care about you. They want you to be what they need. And they don't want you to be some esoteric, future-oriented, goal-achieving coach. Like, on this podcast, I'm taking what's unique to me and my authenticity, and I'm trying to bring what's meaningful for your show.
Right.
But I'm not bringing all of me. I'm bringing what's meaningful for this sort of the scope of this.
All right.
And I think that you learn over time, particularly in high school, that being all of you, if you are too much, is like not okay. And then later on, you realize that leaning into that is actually what's going to make you successful, assuming you do it with virtue and respect.
Okay. All right. So let's cover this piece, this moment, because I feel like there's an unlock moment for you in that 26, you have a car accident yourself, right? You nearly die.
Yeah. So, I don't want to say nearly die because I wasn't even really hurt, but it was head-on collision at 30 miles an hour. So it was very intense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Could have died. The Volkswagen Passat, safest car ever. There's a story behind that, but yeah. So yeah, could have died, but didn't.
Okay. So you have this moment. Could have died. And it seems like the way your story kind of unfolds, this was an inflection point. Is that fair to say?
For sure. Biggest inflection point in my entire life to date, other than meeting Emilia Smith.
Okay. I assume that's your wife or girlfriend or daughter?
Girlfriend, future wife.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're intending. I haven't proposed yet. I just want to be as honest as I can here. But
okay. We don't want to spill beans if she's listening. Okay.
Yeah. It's all in the works. All
right. I love it.
I'm a romantic. It's a surprise.
Okay. But let's stay in the moment at 26. So you have this car accident, massive inflection point. So what happens here? Walk us through this of, a lot of people get into a lot of different car accidents. They don't seem to, they might have a physical impact, but not necessarily as much of a mental, emotional impact. So what happens here? What's going on?
Yeah, I think the first thing to acknowledge here is there's a term called existentialism, and I've always been sort of existential. And the reason why is my childhood, while we can get into some of it, I'm not going to share all of it, was extremely adverse. Like there's something called an ACE score, adverse childhood experiences, and mine is like through the roof.
Yeah. And
I've got confirmation from my therapist on that, which was important for me because I knew it, but I needed validation. And so without getting too far into that, it caused me to question life a lot.
Okay.
So when you're talking about 26, so before 26, I did preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, corporate. That whole path, that's the traditional American dream, particularly in Massachusetts. No child left behind. Stepdad left. We were broke. How am I going to go to college? I got straight A's through high school. All the scholarships and financial aid I could get. George W. Bush signed this behind me, the President's Award. Graduated at the top, not the very top, but near the top of my class. And then went to WPI, computer engineering, master's in business, off to the races. Went from broke as a joke when my stepdad left. How am I going to go to college to like global 1% earner in my early 20s? Paid off 84 grand worth of college debt in a single year, 150 grand in a Vanguard account, all different tech companies doing very well in the stock market. And then I get in my car accident. Okay. So the reason I provide that context is because it's important. So when I get in a head-on collision, my fault, that's the other part that's important. I was up in New Hampshire. I was at a three-way intersection. The snowbank was covering the yield sign. I was supposed to yield and didn't. I end up on the wrong side of the road. Look down at the GPS, look up, big bright lights, lift kitted pickup truck. 30 miles an hour. So the truck went up and over my car a bit.
Yep.
And everyone was okay, fortunately, because it would have been my fault.
Yeah.
The truck, the bottom was crushed in, both cars completely totaled, but I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat because I grew up from very humble beginnings in Massachusetts. When my stepdad left, we were pretty struggling to keep the house in the family type of thing.
Right.
He took 95% of the income with him when he left. And so I refused to buy depreciating assets. I learned to buy cars that are older. So 2004 Volkswagen Passat, even though I was making a lot of money, $5,000 cash, boom, car saved my life. Car totally saved my life. I used to call it the tank.
Right.
Yeah. German engineered steel trap of a car. So thank you, Volkswagen. But so while I'm physically okay, we're definitely rattled. Me and my little cousin, second cousin from my mom's side. And then the other person was pissed because it wasn't his truck. Furious at me.
Okay.
My fault. But I'm, my little cousin's 17 at the time. He's already tweeting about it back when Twitter was Twitter. I am getting yelled at by this other guy, and I'm just disassociated because I'm 26 at the time.
Right.
My dad died in a car at 28 in 1991. And this is 2015, and I almost just died at 26. And that very easily could have been a death. I mean, thank you, Volkswagen. This thing is a tank. And both airbags did deploy. So we were super rattled, but no permanent damage, no deaths. But yeah, that was sort of my quarter-life existential crisis that I refer to now as the biggest inflection point in my life, except for meeting Emilia. And that's when I realized that the corporate trajectory I'm on is no longer aligned for me.
Okay. Just like that?
There's the narrative bias and everything, right? But yeah, kind of. So I want to explain this in a way that might make sense to others, even though I don't think it, I think I struggle to articulate it well now because I now know what won't land. A lot of people believe that I did a great job. And I, I did, you did so well and you got straight A's and you got into college and you did, like, listen,
right.
Yes. And I rested on talent. I didn't have to try that hard to get straight A's. Not a lot of people will admit this, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, gifted people aren't allowed to talk about their giftedness. It's a social thing. You're not allowed to say you're gifted. So what I am going to say, however, is I was resting on talent for sure. I didn't put it all on the court, not even a little bit.
Right.
Too many high school friends to college friends to corporate. Like, I had a thriving social life and I partied and I had a blast and I lived a full life, quote unquote, but I was not even scratching the surface of my true potential. And at 26, that became very evident. I wasn't even close to my true potential. And so from that moment until now, that was 11 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
From 26 to 37, I have put it all on the court. And I want to, so there's a poem up here called Man in the Glass, and it's a very famous poem. But basically, when I looked in the mirror back then, I couldn't honestly say I gave it all I had. I did all I could with all I had. No, I didn't. Not even close.
Right.
Now, I can say that authentically. Now, does that mean I'm perfect? No. Does that mean every day is perfect? No. But I'll tell you what, effort will never be any less than everything I've got. And so that was the start of the mission. Bring personal development, self-improvement, and personal growth to the masses.
Okay.
Terrible idea, but I am doing it. And I'm doing it in my own unique way. And it's been a hell of a journey since. So yeah, before that, it was sort of a corporate path. And after that, it was, okay, I don't understand why we didn't learn any of this in school. I was a straight A student. I didn't take time management courses. Nope. Fitness. Nope. Nutrition. Nope. Finance.
Right.
Nope. Not until grad school. Like, we use money every day. We eat food every day. We use our bodies every day. And we don't learn much about those things.
Right. Relationships.
Yeah. Relationships, communication, vulnerability, courage, humility. Right. So now everything I do and don't do within reason is circled around bringing the education that really matters in real life, not just the social world, but real world, that if you improve yourself, you can improve your life. And a lot of this stuff, like productivity, we didn't take a productivity course.
Right.
And kids need to know how to be productive. This 4-hour work week nonsense is not real. You have to learn how to maximize your time, your effort, and your money. And we don't learn how. And so now I teach that. And so I'll get off the soapbox here in a second, but that's my mission. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm on this podcast right now.
Right. To talk about it. I get it.
Yep.
Okay. So question for you. In between car accident and a well-defined mission, you have this moment. And I think this is what's fascinating. This is what I was really super excited to talk with you about, Alan, is to kind of get a sense of how long did that take? Was there a period of wandering in the wilderness? Was there a period of, okay, I know what it's not, but I don't know what it is? And how long did it take to figure out what it is?
Nice. The wilderness years. So there was definitely a period of wandering.
Yeah. What'd that look like?
Trying to redefine. So first of all, post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic growth, two sides of the same coin. I was claustrophobic. Getting back in a car was hard.
Yeah.
I had mental health challenges. So that's all true. And I started getting every book I could get my hands on: personal development, self-improvement, and personal growth, the Stephen Coveys, the Tony Robbins, the blah, 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 blah. And now at 37, I think a lot of them are hot garbage, honestly. But it got me down the path. It got me thinking about my why. It got me thinking about myself. And so I think we all have 3 4K TVs. Self, others, and the world. We all have one really clear one blurry one, and one like static one. My static one was the self. I didn't understand how different I was. I didn't understand my own uniqueness. I didn't understand how unique my past was. I didn't understand that most people don't have a dad who dies at 2 and who a stepdad who leaves at 14 and loses 3 families by the time you're 14. Like, I didn't understand how unique my story was.
Right.
And I didn't exactly surround myself with people who were also curious about that. And so for me, I had to go back to Pride Rock metaphorically, right? Because for me, it was kind of the Lion King is a good metaphor for a lot of people, not just me, but, dad died, stepdad with scar, like, Hakuna Matata. And then you go back to Pride Rock and realize you have to take responsibility.
Right.
And so that's been a really powerful metaphor for my life. And so that's what that was. It was traveling back to Pride Rock. So here's how it looked. You asked me how it looked. I called my ex-girlfriend, her name's Alyssa, and I just asked her questions. And by this time, we've been broken up for years. But this was my circle back. Like, what did you notice about me? One of the things she said is, you never talk about your dad. Your whole family never talk about him. You refuse to talk about your dad's death. And I was like, okay. So I'm obviously running from that.
Right.
And so this was me going back to find my center, facing all the hard truth that I grew up in, and getting rid of the distorted stories that everyone told that weren't real. The way they dealt with that trauma and the avoidance and the, all that stuff. So I had to face a lot of stuff from my past that I don't necessarily want to talk about publicly, but
that's fair.
That was sort of what the beginning was for me. It was a circle back to, who am I? Why is my last name Lazaros? Did I actually choose that, or did I just think I had a choice? Who was my stepdad? Like, what were they really like? Now I'm 37 and I think back and it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
All right. There's a book called Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and Gen X, I don't want to pick on any generations here for a second, but my mom and stepdad, what I will say, and yes, if you were to listen, I'm going to say this regardless. You two did not work on your self-improvement, personal growth, and personal development at all. Right. Hey, at all. And how dare you? And that's my truth. And so I'm rectifying that with my life. And when I have children, I will make sure that I am emotionally intelligent as well as intellectually intelligent. But the point is you kind of have to take responsibility for your own life. And I had to go back and look at Pride Rock and what it had become metaphorically, and sort of rebuild from there. And so that's what it looked like. But it started with talking to people from my past and asking them these questions that I probably used to unconsciously avoid. If you've ever seen Good Will Hunting, Will Hunting is unable to be emotionally vulnerable because he has so much adversity.
Right.
And he was beaten and all that stuff. That's a good metaphor, I think, for my life, because he has a high IQ, but he isn't willing to be emotionally intimate and vulnerable. And luckily, Robin Williams was able to get him to open up. And that movie was on my MySpace. You know, the duck pond scene on that movie was on my MySpace when I was 17. So it makes a lot of sense now. But back then, I just thought I liked it.
Right.
When in reality, it deeply resonated with me.
Yeah, a lot
because
of people.
and it's what a powerful film, by the way. But yeah.
Okay. So how long was this period of kind of discovery before you get to, oh, well, let's say how long was this period of discovery? We won't even get to next level you quite yet. So what are you doing now? You're still working at the career as you're trying to figure this out, and you kind of know you're dialing out even though you're still earning, or quit the job right at 26. It was like, it
was pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I'm working at Cognex at the time. I was an outside sales engineer. My territory at the time was Western Mass, Connecticut, and Vermont.
Okay.
And I was traveling to all these manufacturing facilities like Frito-Lay and GE and all this stuff.
Right.
And I think I stayed for probably a month or two, maybe 3 months after. And at that point, I was just absorbing every book I could get my hands on. So I would be on the road driving and I would be listening to audiobooks.
Development books.
Yeah, personal development books.
Yep.
Self-improvement, self-help, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And like, it just, I was feeding my mind. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, like all these books that were just getting me to think differently and reinforce how I already think, but now I don't feel as alone.
Was this at this time, sorry to jump in, was this an engineering activity or was this a development activity for you? Reading all these books. What's that?
Personal development.
So you had made that leap.
Yeah. At this point I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was absolutely hooked. Like for me, self-improvement, personal development, and personal growth, it felt like the answer I had always been missing. Like, this is the obvious way to live a successful life.
Right.
And so I went all in. Every John Maxwell book. And now I actually think a lot of it is garbage, genuinely. But it's a good start. But that was my first sort of, before this, it was all science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance. Like it was all professional development, not a lot of personal development.
Yep.
Then I went down the personal development rabbit hole.
Okay.
Right. So to me, there's 3 things you have to master in life. You have to master personal development, which is yourself. You have to master social development, which is the others. And you have to master professional development, which is the world. You have to know how the economy works. You have to know how business works, nonprofit versus profit versus charity. You have to know the different economies and the 195 countries and the 8.3 billion people. Like you have to understand growth rates and S curves and all this stuff. Most people don't. But I was good at that. I wasn't as good as the other 2. So I mastered professional development and social development, but I didn't master personal development. So I had to work on that. I had to come up in personal development, emotional intimacy, emotional vulnerability, emotional intelligence. And I had to so I always say, if you want a coach, you probably need a therapist. If you want a therapist, you probably need a coach. It's my joke because I had dozens of mentors and coaches, but all of them were engineers and they were probably just as emotionally not vulnerable as me. Right. So I have a therapist named Carol, who's been wonderful, internal family systems. And that's been great. But Kevin, my business partner, he was emotionally developed, but not professionally. Didn't know how to make a resume. Didn't have a LinkedIn. He's like, dude, nobody has a LinkedIn. I said, brother, everyone has a LinkedIn.
Right.
Like, but we were in 2 different worlds, right? A lot of people call our podcast White Collar Meets Blue Collar, or he calls it The Genius and the Joker, which I think is funny. But the point is he and I grew up in the same town and we had very different, I was professionally developed and he was not. And we had very different paths, but similar upbringings. He didn't know his dad till he was 27. He was raised by his mom and his Mima. I was raised by my mom and my older sister. So we both kind of grew up without fathers, and that's what connected us.
Right.
So here we are now. And yeah, Cognex, I quit probably 2 or 3 months in to this personal development journey. And then I started my own company called Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school, but desperately need to know.
Okay.
Inspirational, motivational, and educational speaking. good luck getting speeches at high schools and colleges with that tagline.
Right.
I still did some, but yeah, it was the beginning.
Thus the wilderness.
You know it.
But you gotta kind of walk that path for a while in order to find often this is what I think is kind of interesting is these things take time to form, to coalesce, to cook, whatever kind of
100%.
word you want. And so how long did that take from Alan Lazaros LLC, who is, probably had an awesome business card to kind of in this next level universe, which obviously you've been doing for a while. It seems like it's working pretty well. It's working for you, your clients, for you. Go ahead.
I love that you said who probably had an awesome business card. I felt very seen right there. Because that's exactly what it is, right? Nice logo, nice business card. Make sure the website, when in reality, you just got to get customers and actually build a real business.